The government has been asked to suspend the Nakuru County Commissioner over the payouts to those affected by the Solai Dam tragedy. A Senate committee probing the matter asked Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i to act on the official Joshua Nkanatha for facilitating the payout. The committee is chaired by Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., but Senator Ledama Ole Kina also sits in this committee.
Yes, it
does. What exactly is the problem here? Because according to many people who understand what's happening, or rather who are watching, they would think that the local administration is the best resource that anyone can have in an exercise of this magnitude, actually trying to pay out an entire village, paying each family monies. This would best be acted upon or conducted by the provincial administration, in this case the county commissioner and local chiefs for that matter. Why do you find this so wrong?
That would be true if this was done by the government. But when the local administration become complicit, then it is quite suspect. Yesterday, the CAS in charge of Interior appeared before us, and he was completely oblivious to the fact that his staff, the county commissioner, is actually the one who was dishing out money given by Patel, and also giving out agreements which were so completely, what do you call them? They were removing the blame from Patel. Yes. They were indemnifying Patel. So it was very, very sad. And it was actually very sad that the Ministry of Interior were denying the fact that the county commissioner and Patel were actually in a meeting negotiating with the Solai victims to be paid money. So that issue of complicity is the one that made us direct that those people be moved out.
But anyone would imagine that the government, at some point, government officers need to be involved in such an exercise. According to the committee, the victims were paid 1 million shillings for lives lost, 200,000 for loss of a semi-permanent structure, and another 1 million for permanent structure.
Wait, let me clarify that first. You know, when it comes to the president, even giving money to Red Cross to be able to settle those victims, then that in itself is suspect. That the president does not even trust his own administration to be able to do that. That 1 million shilling which was paid out, that money was being handed over by the county commissioner, and that money was not from the state, it was from Patel. You know, so what business does, you know, this is what we found to be very, very suspect, that the DPP has rushed to court now to what do you call it, to charge Patel for manslaughter, yet the investigation does not reveal that the local administration is complicit. So for us, we saw as if it was a way of slowing the process. You know, so if that money was paid by the state, we would not have any problem. If you see the list of people who are being paid, because the government gave out some money, some were given 30,000, some were given 50,000 to about 147 households. And when we ask how come all of them have not been compensated, or at least given something to be able to help them, they said, of course, we could not be able to verify.
But what's a big issue with the involvement of government officials in such an exercise? Because how else would this businessman be able to pay out everyone who was involved? Because the statistics, they are in the custody of the government. Only government officials can actually say these are the people who are affected and stand by that.
In my view, the Senate committee is right and wrong at the same time. It is wrong to the extent that invariably you cannot write off the provincial administration. That is the only institution in this country that has got the instrument that can identify and be able to authenticate people when they claim they come from Solai. In the Kenya of today, you should not be surprised if you see somebody from, and with all due respect, somebody coming all the way from Kiambu and going there to claim that is from Solai. It is the provincial administration that can help in that kind of situation. So to that extent, I think the parliamentary committee is not looking at it properly. But they are also right they are right in the fact that there are many of us who believe what was being negotiated was not in good faith. They wanted people to accept that payment, say they don't proceed to court to challenge the company for better claims and so on. So it speaks to complexity of the provincial administration.
So the problem is in the kind of agreement.
That was
probably the process that led to the agreement that seems to indemnify
Actually,
yes.
the farm owner, and not necessarily the process of paying these people.
No, the process of paying them is wrong. And I want to correct my dear brother here,
Yes.
that the reason why we wrote off the local administration is because of the evidence which was being provided by the locals on the site. They were the ones, they did not even want the county commissioner to speak when the Senate committee visited the site. They were saying, you are giving people money who are not even victims. You know, you are coming in here and you are giving us documents to sign. We don't understand these documents. We don't know what we are doing. I think it is wrong. When there is such a tragedy, it is wrong for Patel to rush and say, you know, I'm not liable for whatever happened. That in itself is suspect.
Is it ethically wrong? Because it's not a crime if at all these people sign such a...
It is ethically wrong because what happened there is that you cannot come and actually cause a problem. Because let me tell you what is happening. There are 7 dams in that Solai farm. And all of those dams are illegal. That is number one. Patel blocked a river so that it can purport to be philanthropic, that he's helping the people downstream by giving them water. And then what he did is that the license that he had was not even for a dam.
But Senator,
so the problem that was there is this, number one. If you are now coming in and telling the people who have been affected that I'm not liable, accept these 50,000 shillings, accept these 1 million shillings, and then exonerate me from any liability, that is in itself is wrong.
But our understanding is that there's already a process. He's already been arraigned and charged with manslaughter. And that process is ongoing as it is. We cannot comment much on it because it's already before court. But how does this process of payout affect that one?
It affects it because, first of all, the problem is that issue of indemnity. You cannot say that I'm not liable for what has happened. If the matter is already in court and it is being investigated by the Senate committee, because we started investigating it, why don't you come in? Because what happened, I think it was in Mexico or some other country, when such a tragedy happened. In fact, the government was actually paid because of such, what do you call it, such negligence. So I have no problem with the process of compensating the victims. But why don't you follow the due process of the law? You know, why don't you ensure that these victims have legal representation so that they can be able to argue for themselves and say, this is good and this is bad. The fact that you come in and you are acting, you are the lawyer, and you are saying, this, sign here, I give you this money, and then indemnify me.
Yes.
If those people were fully represented, they had their own lawyers that they chose, and the lawyers sit down and discuss and agree, then we'll not have any beef with that.
Who is
also
misinformed here? Is it Perry Mansour, the owner of the farm, that is misinformed, or is it the government that is misinformed, or the victims of the tragedy? Because a process is already before court. Whether or not these people are paid compensation to whatever level, it does not affect the other process. Is it wrong for a private farm owner like Bwana Patel to actually compensate or appear to compensate such victims?
My problem is with the government. It is sitting and allowing a private individual to take advantage of the desperation by the people in terms of the fact that some of them wanted clothing, some of them wanted shelter, some of them wanted money to bury their loved ones, some of them wanted money to go to hospital, and so on and so forth. Ordinarily, and it is true that we have got an emergency fund in this country, we've got disaster management funds in this country. The government should have moved in as government and taken care of the problem.
Yes.
After taking care of the problem, the government then should have gone to this private individual called Patel and tell him that we as government, we are now negotiating with you that for each person who either lost life or lost property, this is what will be their entitlement. The fact that this has not happened begs the question, do we have an Attorney General
Yes.
in the Republic of Kenya?
Do we have a process that can actually cater for this, that in case of such tragedy, then the government is the one to take up the matter to carry out this negotiation, if at all any such negotiation is to take place?
Currently, as the disaster management or disaster, I think the different disaster management units in the government, I don't believe that we have a process that can be able to negotiate. So it is failure
on the part of
the
lack
let
of
me
processes.
tell you, you had asked a very good question. Who is misinformed here? And yesterday it appeared as if the Ministry of Interior is completely misinformed on what is happening on the ground. Or they just chose to be ignorant and they do not want to really investigate the matter as well. So this will give us now an opportunity. The work that we are doing in that select committee is to be able to sit down and talk to the people who are affected, yes, and be able to understand, visit the site. The biggest problem we have is that when you find that the local administration is protecting the Patel, then it becomes very, very suspect.
But by your own admission is that, yes, probably we need legislation to govern some of these things.
Absolutely.
And probably that is what is going to come from your committee.
Absolutely. There are so many things that we, of course, I cannot talk about the recommendations, yes, which are going to come here, but having taken the time to sit down with WARMA, to sit down with NCA, to sit down with the local people on the ground who are affected, to sit down with the Ministry of Interior, we are looking at where there are loopholes, so that this never happens again in this country.
In case of tragedy, at least.
In case of tragedy, there is a way to be able to resolve this problem. The reason why we're meeting with the Ministry of Interior yesterday is because the disaster management of this country falls under that ministry. Next week on Tuesday, we'll be meeting with Matiang'i, because the questions that we asked, the CAS who appeared before us yesterday was not able to give us satisfactory answers. In fact, he did not even respond to any of the issues that we asked. Okay. So the issue of Solai is something which, and in fact yesterday, we came up with a suggestion that if the government is going to pursue the criminal element of the Solai tragedy, we in the Senate committee will pursue the civil element.
So you will be going to court?
We will be going to court.
Wow. Of course, the probe continues with that committee of the Senate, which is probing the Solai Dam tragedy. So many issues coming up, and of course, we'll continue covering them for you. Let's now take a look at what's happening in the counties. Page 6 of the Daily Nation. Two headlines with regard to what's happening at the county level.